the freedom of forgiveness. Awakening to divine freedom. Good morning, beloved community. I find peace and freedom when I forgive. What I release no longer has the power to imprison me. And it's become my tradition to bring back the joke, because I know some people missed it. Some of you may not have. A minister was preaching enthusiastically about forgiveness. And he asked the congregation, how many of you are willing to forgive your enemies? Almost every hand went up, except for one elderly woman in the front row. The minister asked, Miss Clara, you aren't willing to forgive your enemies? And she replied, I don't have any enemies. The minister was amazed. That's wonderful. At your age, how have you managed to live without having any enemies? She smiled and said, I outlived every one of them. There are several ways to get rid of your enemies. Apparently, patience is one of them. But Jesus did suggest another way: forgiveness. And forgiveness may be one of the most misunderstood practices in our spiritual lives. I'd like to share a little story with you. I'm going to call it the stone in the pocket. Imagine that someone hurts you deeply. Perhaps they betray you. Perhaps they humiliate you. Perhaps they abandon you. And so you pick up a stone. That stone represents what happened. And you put it in your pocket. At first, carrying it feels justified. You think, I need to remember what they did. And perhaps for a while you do. The stone reminds you to establish boundaries. It teaches you something. But years pass. The person who hurt you moves on. And you are still carrying the stone. You take it to work. Take it home. You take it into new relationships. You take it to church. You take it on vacation. Sometimes, late at night, you take the stone out. You turn it over in your hands. You remember exactly what happened. You rehearse what you should have said. You imagine conversations that will probably never happen. And then you put the stone back in your pocket. Does this sound familiar? Eventually, something strange happens. You are no longer carrying the stone. The stone is carrying you. Forgiveness begins when we finally ask, how long do I want to carry this stone? Peter once asked Jesus, Lord, if another member of the church sins against me, how often should I forgive? As many as 7 times? Jesus answered, not 7 times, but I tell you 77 times. In case you want to reference, that's Matthew 18, 21 and 22. Peter thought he was being generous by saying 7 times. 7 times is a lot. But Jesus points beyond arithmetic. He's saying, stop counting. As long as you're counting offenses, you're still keeping a ledger. Keeping accounts. Forgiveness is the moment we decide we no longer want to organize our lives around debt. Perhaps the most radical expression of forgiveness in the Christian tradition comes from the cross. Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing. Luke 23 and 34. Notice what Jesus does not say here. He doesn't say that they did nothing wrong. Something terrible is happening. Forgiveness does not deny reality. Jesus does not call crucifixion acceptable. He does say something much more profound. He refuses to allow hatred to determine who he becomes. That is spiritual freedom. Forgiveness is not approval. And this distinction is very important. Forgiveness does not mean what happened was acceptable. It does not mean you must trust someone who has proven untrustworthy. It does not mean you must remain in an abusive relationship. It does not mean there should be no consequences. And forgiveness does not automatically mean reconciliation. Reconciliation requires participation from both sides. Sometimes, though, forgiveness can happen entirely in one heart. Forgiveness means I refuse to let what happened continue living inside me as poison. I don't have to carry that rock around in my pocket and pull it out and just relive it. Jesus says in the Gospel of Thomas, if you bring forth what is within you, what you have will save you. That's the saying number 70. This is a profound psychological and spiritual truth. What is hidden must be brought into consciousness. We have to be aware. Pain that we refuse to acknowledge does not disappear. Resentment we bury does not vanish. Grief we avoid does not cease to exist. If you bring forth what is within you, what you have, Christ within you, will save you. If we don't, it just waits, lurking in our shadow. Forgiveness does not begin by pretending we are unhurt, but by becoming honest about what is within us. Bring it forth. Name it. Feel it. See it. And then transform it. It doesn't go away. You change your relationship with it. Gospel of Thomas also says, love your brother like your soul. Guard that person like you would the pupil of your eye. Saying number 25. This teaching becomes especially challenging when we remember that the person before us is imperfect, just like we are. To see another as soul does not mean approving every action. It means refusing to reduce a human being to the worst thing they have ever done. And that includes ourselves. Unity teaches us that beneath our human personality is something deeper, the Christ within us, our divine identity, our spiritual nature. Human experiences can wound us, words can hurt, relationships can break, bodies can be injured, and trust can be violated. We shouldn't minimize those realities. But within us, there is something that is deeper than anything that has happened to us. Something whole, something sacred, something untouched at its center. At its center. It's the Christ within. It's the Christ within. Forgiveness becomes possible when I remember what happened to me is only part of my story. It's not the definition of my being. My deepest identity remains rooted in God. No matter how separate I have brought myself, God is still there. No matter how dark I feel, the presence is always within me. Emily Cady repeatedly directs us inward towards a divine center, the place where God and the individual meet. When we only live from our surface personality, we react from our memory. Someone says something, and suddenly an old wound speaks. Someone disappoints us, and 10 previous disappointments join in the conversation. But when we return to our spiritual center, we gain some space. We discover I have feelings, but I am more than my feelings. I have memories, but I'm more than my memories. I have wounds, but I am more than my wounds. At the core, I am spirit expressing in this world. Goosebumps. I am beloved. I am whole. Here's an old image that's often associated with resentment. It's kind of like the Irish joke. Maybe I'll tell you that later. Holding resentment is like holding a hot coal while waiting to throw it at someone else. Who gets burned first? We do. All right, the Irish joke, I won't make you wait. Holding a resentment is like stabbing your own self in the hand and expecting someone else to feel the pain. The other person may not even know that we are angry. They may be somewhere having lunch. They don't care that you're holding on to that hot coal. They don't. Meanwhile, what are we doing? We're replaying the conversation for the 43rd time. I've been there. Winning arguments in the shower. Delivering brilliant speeches in the car. And the person isn't even there. Forgiveness is putting down the coal. Not because the other person deserves to be free, but you do. We live in a culture that's become remarkably skilled at remembering offenses. A person says something foolish years ago. A screenshot survives forever. Old mistakes are rediscovered, and public outrage begins. Just don't become a politician, then everybody gets to see it. Sometimes accountability is necessary because justice matters. Truth matters. But there's a spiritual question our culture rarely asks. Is transformation possible? How often do you hear that? Can a person become more than their worst moment? Can someone learn? Can someone change? Can we? A society without forgiveness eventually becomes a society without redemption. And Christianity without redemption is difficult to even recognize as Christianity. Carl Jung understood that what remains unconscious continues influencing us. The wound we refuse to examine may quietly become the lens through which we see the world. Someone betrays us once, and we decide people can't be trusted. Wow. Someone abandons us. We decide eventually everyone leaves. Someone criticizes us, and we decide I am not enough. Eventually, the event becomes a belief. That belief becomes an identity, and the identity becomes a prison. Forgiveness says, this happened, but this is not who I am. If you've been through the quantum living process, you're probably thinking, wow, this is why I took the quantum living process. We got a new cohort forming, just so you know. Sometimes the person we most need to forgive is ourselves. We remember what we should have done, what we should have said, the relationship that we damaged, the opportunity we missed, the years we think we wasted. If divine love has released you, why are you still holding yourself hostage? Self-forgiveness does not mean refusing responsibility. It means taking responsibility without turning guilt into identity. You can say, I made a mistake, without saying, I am a mistake. I made a mistake, but I am not that mistake. Enormous difference. Here's something that's very strange about resentment. The event happened in the past, but every time we replay it emotionally, we bring that past into our present. And what happens to our body? The body responds. The heart tightens. Anger returns. The argument happens again. Psychological time has now collapsed, and the past has become right here and right now. When we're in that kind of stress, when our body is in that fight or flight mode caused by that pain we experienced a long time ago, what are we doing to our health right now? Forgiveness restores time to its proper order. It says, that happened then. I am here now. The past may inform me. It may teach me. It may even leave scars. But it does not have to govern this moment. We've been exploring radical wholeness this whole month. Radical comes from a Latin root, radix, which means root. At the root of our being, we are whole. Not because nothing painful ever happened. Not because we made no mistakes. Not because everyone treated us well. We are whole because our deepest identity originates in a reality that cannot be divided. God. Divine life. The Christ within. The field of oneness in whom we live and move and have our being. Forgiveness is not the creation of wholeness. Forgiveness is the removal of what prevents us from experiencing the wholeness that's already present. I got a practical exercise. And we've been talking before the service started. We're going to try to figure out a way to get these practical exercises into written form, because even if you're taking notes, and I appreciate that you are, it's hard to get everything down. So this practical exercise we'll call the stone and the blessing. This week I want you to find a small stone and hold it in your hand. Let it represent for you something that you've been carrying, okay? Perhaps a resentment, a regret, a guilt, anger, a relationship, or a disappointment. I don't want you to go and pick the deepest trauma you've ever experienced in your life here. Begin with something you're ready to work with. And for a moment say, this happened. Get the stone. Do not deny it. Then, I honor what I learned. So first, this happened. I honor what I learned. I release my need to carry it in the same way. And now take the stone somewhere that's meaningful for you. Maybe a stream, a garden, maybe the base of a tree, and just place it down. And then say, I release you. I release myself. I choose freedom. I'm going to do my best to put this on the website, if not today, tomorrow, okay? The outer act does not magically erase our inner work. It's not some magic, this ritual. But the ritual does help give our soul a language. We go through these motions because our unconscious, we appreciate the symbolism of the motion. The body reinforces what our heart and our head are learning to believe. Okay, so let's do this right now. Call it the open hand. Here's one simple gesture that creates our spiritual journey. First, make a fist. Hold it tightly. Protect, defend, control this fist. Now open your hand. The circumstances may not have changed. The past has not been rewritten, but something has changed. Your relationship to what you're holding. Forgiveness is this movement from the closed fist to the open hand. The open hand can release. The open hand can receive. The open hand can bless. The open hand can reach for another. The open hand is finally free. Now, if you'd like to participate, you can affirm after me each one of these affirmations. I am rooted in the wholeness of God. I honor what I have experienced. I receive the wisdom it has given me. I release resentment and guilt and the need to remain bound to yesterday. I forgive others. I forgive myself. What I release no longer has the power to imprison me. I am whole. I am free. I am an expression of divine love. And so it is. Radical wholeness. We began with the burning bush and discovered a gentle nudge. Guidance. God is already speaking, so we learned to listen. We encountered the lion and the lamb and discovered that peace is not the elimination of opposites. Peace is their transformation within a greater wholeness. We learned to integrate. Today, we placed down the stone. We opened our hand. We discovered that forgiveness does not change yesterday. It changes what yesterday is allowed to do today. We learn to release. Listen. Integrate and release. And beneath all three of these is one great spiritual realization. Nothing has ever separated us from the presence of God. This is radical wholeness. Not becoming whole someday, but awakening to the wholeness that has been here all along. The freedom of forgiveness.